we've obviously had some roster movement that's been announced the last couple of days. And to Matt's point, just want to kind of echo the fact that, unless something's been announced formally by the league office, we're just not going to comment about any players on our roster. So the one that was announced most recently was the mutual termination of Miguel Nazarit. We certainly wish Miguel well, and it's unfortunate there was more of an opportunity for him here. The reality is when we first pursued signing Miguel as our first, player in that capacity, looking at a young international player, it was a time before we had drafted Jack Mayer and before we had traded for Walker Zimmerman. It was a time when we only had 2 center backs on our roster, and Dave Romney and Jalil Anababa, and where we certainly wish Miguel well and think he's got a lot of potential as a player and as a person. The reality was there just weren't, opportunities for him to get his nose around the corner here, and we certainly wish him well going forward in his own opportunities. That's it for me.
Thank you, Mike. We'll go now to Gary's opening statement.
Well, it's always nice to get the group back together again. A little bit of rest and recuperation mentally and physically. We're pretty well versed with the whole IMG surroundings and setup here, which I think is very conducive to the work that needs to be done in these early stages. Groups come back in wonderful shape. There's plenty of testing in all clubs around the country at this point, and I've got to say I'm absolutely delighted with the way that the guys have turned up. And the last couple of days that we've had in far better conditions than we could have expected in Nashville have been very, very good. Really, really happy with the way things have opened up in this start of preseason.
Thank you, Gary. We'll start with Ben Wright, then go down the line. Drake Hills and Tim Self. Go ahead, Ben.
Yeah, Gary, good to talk to you for the first time in a while. I guess my question is for both of you guys. Just looking back at last season and heading into this season, what are some of your goals for things that you can do, for things that you can improve on the field, or just goals in general that you want to try to achieve this season?
Yeah, you want to go first?
I don't mind. I'm happy. Age before beauty. Does that mean it's me?
Yeah.
Well, look, I think from, the perspective of an off-season, a lot of things to digest and be happy about in terms of our regular season form. Improvements within the group. What are we after this year? Well, I'd have to say something close to what we've seen in the last year. I think the challenges for us and that have been put in front of us are quite monumental in terms of shifting conferences, travel that the group will have to undertake. So if we can maintain some of the sort of consistency as a team defensively, and of course as a creative and goal scoring unit, I don't think we'll be far away from where we want to be again come the end of the season. As far as individuals, there's 2 or 3 of the guys in the group that would have liked to have seen more playing time last year, and each and every one of those guys have come back in terrific shape and look like they've got terrific appetite to make a little bit of a mark. And if those guys that we've brought in and didn't get the football that they necessarily felt they should have can have an effect on the group, guess what? It will give us much more strength and I think competitiveness to endure what will be a difficult season.
Gary and I met earlier today and talked about the idea. I've mentioned with you guys a little bit, I think, after the super draft, about trying to put ourselves in position from a roster construction standpoint to kind of weaponize our roster from the idea when you look at the amount of allocation money and other assets we've been able to collect, whether it's leaving spots open, whether it's, international spots, which we have both use for players as well as to sell to acquire additional allocation money. We're in a position right now where one of our goals all along is to position Gary to not only have a team to compete right now, but when an opportunity presents itself for him to need an upgrade or refresh it up, that we have the resource to do that. And really teams that have the kind of allocation money we normally have usually are expansion teams. So for us to be in position to have those kind of weapons available at our disposal to be able to add players at the right time, we're excited about that. And in regards to on the field, look, it's uncharted territory when you think about teams going into their third year. Having won playoff games each of our first 2 years, but even to be in position to be competing potentially for a third playoff appearance in 3 years. And, as Gary mentioned a little bit also, we want to be able to maintain consistency and kind of demonstrate the things we've done these last 2 years to show that there are things we can do all the time. And I think it's really kind of appropriate and intriguing that, our week one opponent is Seattle because, they are the flagship club in our league. They are the team that's been most successful from the standpoint, not only MLS Cups and MLS Cup appearances, but also sustaining success in the amount of years that have gone this season. And, for us to be able to measure ourselves up against them in week one, to have two teams that operate in very different sets of circumstances, but, hopefully have similar levels of aspirations and success. We'd love to be in a situation, not only playing them week one, but to be in a situation we can be comparing ourselves to them year after year.
Thank you, Mike. We'll go to Drake Hills and Tim Sullivan.
Yeah, this question is for Gary. Good to see you again. Hope all is well down in South Florida. I wanted to ask something dating back to last season that you mentioned going into this season. Obviously, about the matter of options A or B. I think in the context with shape that you were mentioning and having one option and the other. Obviously, we saw last season that you were able to pivot from one to the other. And also another thing you mentioned was this season about taking a lot of those draws and making those wins. How do you present that to the group, and at what point does that start? Does that start at the beginning of camp? Do you wait until you've evaluated the group a little bit after preseason to instill in that? What does that look like in terms of making those adjustments for this season?
Just a little bit of an insight maybe as to what our training program looks like and the foundational work that we try and achieve in these 6 weeks building into the season. There'll be video footage of ourselves and of teams that I've often referred to as mirror teams that will play in a very similar way to, our own desires that we can refer back to, we can use as, informational pictures, if you like, to help reinforce some of the good things that we achieved last year, and also to try and help each and every individual improve and take a step forward in their respective positions. That is wrapped up in the practical work, the physical work, and of course the relationship building that any team will have during the pre-season period of time. The considerations for us have to be looked at from scheduling standpoint. 8 games away from home from the very outset. Then we have a glut of home games because of that, from that middle period on. And in my own mind, there's some thoughts and feelings as to what the early part of the season could and should look like to give us a strong foundation, one that, is a platform to help us push on when we come back to our own stadium, and a situation that we all hope is going to inspire the players, and we can make as much use of as we did at Titan Stadium. That's the main aim for all of us. But that in itself won't be easy because, we have some history at Titans now that we were able to draw on over a 2-year period. the hope is we can get off on a good footing when we open up on May the 1st. And as I say, give us that, hopefully give us a lift and a shot in the arm at a time when we'll need it.
Then Gary, we'll go to Tim Sullivan and Tom Bogert.
Hello, Gary. Good to see you again. You are obviously very used to training and even playing without Walker, Anibal, Randall. Who are some of the guys, especially in a preseason situation with those guys playing for their nations, that you expect to step up and maybe kind of fill the roles, at least in the early training sessions as you prepare for next season?
Well, to Mike's point earlier, we were having a chat after the training session, and circumstances offer up opportunities to other players when under normal circumstances you may not see as much training time in a particular position, working with a particular player. Guys like Sean Davis come straight into the group, and with Annabelle, with his country, it's an easy transition into the group, and for him to see some of the clearer pictures of working with the other first team players around him. You can make that example of someone like Till Bunbury, who comes into the group, who's obviously looking to put a very strong and successful front line under pressure from the outset. And when you've got a tighter group, it certainly gives those guys a better window to show themselves. And of course, probably the most important person, and I don't like sort of underlining people's names or situations, but this is Aki's first full pre-season with our group. And, the one thing that's been really encouraging is that he comes into the group when everyone's on a level playing field. He's coming in great shape. These first couple of days, which is a small sample size, we've seen a really encouraging aspect, not only to his game, but to everyone around him. And I feel like, the group, and of course himself individually, will have a big opportunity here to gain some much needed confidence in where this opportunity of his is going. So, I've been delighted. I think you can tell in the way that I'm talking, it's been a very nice opening for all sorts of people in these first couple of days.
Then Gary, we'll go to Tom Bogert, then Claudio.
Thank you. Gary, this one's for you. I know that Drake already asked something on this topic, but just going to like tactics and formations and whatnot, with not to oversimplify things, but the assumption I suppose would be that the three at the back would be, I guess, first choice or something that you guys are working on as a preferred formation. And I guess with that, guys, traditional wingers like Alex Muil and Henwala Buana should we be expected to see them, I guess, get reps or chances at, either wingback position in preseason?
I think it's a fairly decent question. In terms of structure and shape, it wouldn't take a rocket scientist to really look at our stats and competitiveness within that 3-4-3 shape. It also gave, as we spoke on numerous occasions, Hanny and Randall, CJ in particular, the opportunity to express themselves. So that shape, that template is one that, will certainly be used and looked at in these early stages. Honestly, I never like saying this is categorically what we're going to do. There have been a couple of situations and examples of utilising Dax in a sort of forward screening area, dropping in as a third centre back, which I really like the sound of for the group. And whilst Walker's away, it's an opportunity for me to look at that. So there's always a little slant on that style that I'm thinking of. And of course, depending on the opponent, it can have very different effects on any game. As far as the individuals go, we've already spoken about opportunity. it is definitely a time to look at guys like Alex in an extended view in a wing-back role. I do honestly think that someone like Hanwala is extremely well suited to the roles that Hani and Randall will play within the team. The challenge, of course, is that you're looking at two exceptionally good players, one of which is an international and the other one should be. Now, it's certainly not easy to break into that in that area of the field because of the creativity and goal scoring necessary for the group. But I've got to tell you, the abilities of the person we're talking about are there to see. He's enthused and he's very much excited about the challenge in front of him.
Thank you, Gary. We'll go to Claudio, then go around to Ben Wright for the final round of questions before we get to Sean Davis.
Thank you, Matt. Hello, Gary and Mike. I guess I have a couple questions for each one of you. Mike, first of all, when can anybody say that a team, from your perspective, is close in terms of what other possibilities of players you could bring into? Is there any position that the team might be looking for to kind of reinforce it? And then for Gary, you come from the West Conference. Actually, that's where you won your championship there with the Colorado. How much that conference has changed since then, and why is it that there's a perceived, which I don't agree with? I think every MLS team is tough, anyways, no matter where they come from. Why is it that concession, especially in the fans, that things might be getting harder for Nashville going into the West Conference than it was in the East? Thank you, guys. You have a good day.
Go on, Mike.
Sure. Well, Claudio, first off, thanks for the question. And, it's interesting when I see members of the media talk about what our team needs. And I think the idea of added punch up front, we were one of the leading scoring teams in MLS this past year and really return everybody intact. So, I think it's a little short-sighted, maybe a little naive too, but I can appreciate the idea of wanting to have DP, shiny toys to point to. And, I think as Gary mentioned, the opportunity to see Ake in a full preseason, to have him integrate at a time, maybe with Randall's out of market with the national team, to see him play with the likes of Hani and CJ and Teal rotating all together. That's been really encouraging. And, but for us, we're always looking to try to make sure we have as many different scoring options as possible. I love the idea of trying to give Gary as difficult a time as possible to pick his team because he's got so many options. So I think for us, we've got a pretty diverse attack right now. But for us, it's always something we always continue to kind of freshen up. We also traded a player in Allison Johnson this past year, who's this past offseason, who played quite a bit for us in the right flank each of the last 2 years. And, as Gary mentioned, also, you have some guys like Alex Wheel who've played an awful lot for us in some really important games over the last 2 years. And, where we feel like we're pretty well stocked in that role also, we'll always try to kind of see what needs to be freshened up. And, it could be those roles, but the reality is, we're in a position right now where as we get moving along, there's any area that Gary feels like we need to kind of freshen up, we have the ability to do that.
Gary?
Yeah, Claudio, it's always interesting to listen to the opinions that people have about the two conferences. And I do think there are some differences fundamentally between the two leagues. When you look at really the construction of the Eastern Conference, teams like Red Bull and DC, their style of play, that upwardly positive, pressing, aggressive fashion, Philadelphia of, over the last 3 or 4 seasons, been very successful with the way that they go about their business. And I don't think anyone would say they were possession-orientated teams, but very, very effective in what they do and still very aggressive. Whereas, you get the opinion, and when I look at the games in the Western Conference, there's a more strategic and possession-orientated feel to that, especially the further west you go. Is that due to the climate? Is it due to the, just the makeup of the teams? I don't know. But as you start to come into the sort of Midwest areas with, Kansas and Minnesota, you're getting back to what I might class as a more Eastern looking divisional team. Now, the simple fact is both divisions are very, very tough to play in. The challenge for us on this occasion, playing in the Western Conference, having had 2 good years in the Eastern Conference as a brand new franchise, is that there are a lot of there's a lot of appreciation of the teams that we've already played against. I think we've earned a little bit of respect. I'm not going to overdo the respectful chatter because I might be speaking out of turn, but I think we've earned a little bit of respect with what we've achieved and how we've gone about our business as a brand new franchise. That respect counts for something when you're playing against talented and capable teams. We've earned the right to, to put a little bit of doubt and a little bit of fear in people's minds, what we're capable of in the Eastern Conference. When we go to the West, I can count on one hand the teams that we've run into. And the majority of those teams, we will have changed quite dramatically since we played them early on in our very first year. So not only have we got to get used to their style, there's a completely different look and feel to those games that we're going to undertake for the majority of the season. Throw into the fact that, there's some tremendous travelling and logistical question marks for the group in the way that we prepare for games, the time zone changes, and then of course the recovery for the next game. So, for all of those reasons, this will be a very, very different season to the last 2. Of course, throw into the equation a new stadium and 8 games away from home to begin with that we haven't experienced. So, have we got the moral fibre and the discipline to deal with that? Absolutely, but it'll certainly be a challenge.
Go ahead, Ben.
Yeah, I guess I have another one for both of you. But Gary, I guess if you want to take this one first, we're going to talk to Sean here for the first time. Could you just tell us a little bit about, I guess, what made him such an attractive option in free agency, and then what you've seen from him early on here in preseason?
Well, quite honestly, I think if I threw that question back open to you fellas and said to you, look, if you had to pick a midfield player for this Nashville group, having seen what you've seen out of the first 2 years, what would some of the qualities be that you would like to bring to this team, or you believe this team should have in that central midfield area? And without, waiting on all the answers, I'd be really surprised if you didn't come up with somebody that looked exactly like Sean Davis. A very competitive, yet intelligent and technically capable individual. His pass completion rate is very high. His win ratio and turnover of the ball is very high. And on top of all of that, he's an impeccable character and has been the captain of one of, I would say the most progressive and productive teams in MLS with, young players and the direction they've gone in. So I'm absolutely delighted that Sean's part of our group. I think he's a huge coup for the team. I think he'll be a wonderful piece as we move forward and, gives us some tremendous competition in that midfield area that was already a very strong area of our game. As far as training, his adaptation to us and to the team, goes without saying, a captain, 29-year-old, experienced player of his ilk in MLS has run into just about all of the players in our group over a period of time. I think I'm right in saying that someone like Alex Mule is a very close friend of his from years gone by, and the New York pathway. It's been a seamless move, and the work that I've seen already, although a small sample size, just reinforces what I felt and looked at prior to his arrival.
Go ahead, Tim.
Gary, last week you added a couple players via the draft. We had a chance to ask Mike about them last week. Let's ask you about them. What have you looked forward to in seeing Ahmed and Will with your club?
Yeah, look, we I believe made a very positive and forceful move in trying to get higher up the order to add Ahmed. Lots and lots of potential in this young defender. Athletically, I think his biggest attributes when he's come into pre-season and now seeing him up close, I think we'll all agree that he could probably do with putting on 6 or 8 pounds as he goes through his early professional introductions and over the course of the next months. And having had a chat with him, and he understands that. He's running into seasoned pros now, and not only physically capable, but understand their trade exceptionally well. And I think that workload will stand him in good stead as he moves through this development period. As far as Will's concerned, I've got to be honest, I've not seen a huge amount of him in training. He's been over with Matt Pickens and the goalkeeper Core to get through a lot of their foundational work. But a very agile goalkeeper, quick feet, lots of athleticism. Strangely enough, a little bit outside the usual mold of sort of 6'5", 6'6" goalkeepers that we got. But as far as an addition to the group, a very positive one. I mean, and I know we traded for guys like Josh from Atlanta. Sorry, picked him up in the waiver draft. But these are all nice young additions to the group, and all these guys have got some real nice potential.
What was it about Nashville SC that made it such an attractive option for you as a free agent when you recently made your move there?
Yeah, first of all, I'd like to thank everyone for joining this call, and for the local media. Hopefully we can meet in person when COVID passes, but I'm looking forward to getting to know everyone. But Tim, back to your question, it's going to be a long answer. But, I think, first of all, I think that Nashville is a club that's gotten so many things right, not only in its MLS tenure, but also dating back to the USL days. And so as soon as free agency opened on December 15th, it was great to get to understand where this club has been. It helped me understand how they've done so well in just their first 2 years. And it gave me great confidence in what the club can achieve going forward. Now, in terms of personally why I decided to join Nashville, first of all, I look at the locker room and I have a lot of admiration for how it was constructed. I look around and I felt like it was a group that I could immediately connect with. Not only did I know several guys, including Alex and Dax, Danny Lovitz from PDL, Taylor Washington from growing up, Brian Meredith is from Jersey. I mean, I could go down the list of different guys, but you can also talk about how many guys want to be part of the MLSPA and want to be player reps. And I was the rep since 2015 in New York. And so I think that was another strong indication that I'd fit in with this group. And there's just a lot of MLS veterans, both domestic and international. That's something that, I identify as, and I really appreciate their focus on MLS experience. On top of that, I think that they also value a lot of things that I bring to the game coming from New York. Extremely disciplined team defensively. They value defensive work rate. But at the same time, I really appreciate the progress that they made from year 1 to year 2 with the ball. And already in my first few sessions and working with Gary and the group, I can see that I can see how they progressed. And so, I think that's an area of my game that I can continue to improve on. And so I saw an opportunity to continue to grow as a player. I've worked with so many coaches over my career, so many great players over my career. And, so many of them had taken steps to new teams, new environments, to ultimately grow. And I'm a big believer in that. I come from a family that really believes in that. And again, I just try to learn from players that have been in the league longer than me. And, I think ultimately those were really important experiences for them. I also think the timing was great in my career. Being a free agent is very rare, especially in this league. It's a new mechanism, honestly. And, having that freedom to choose, it just allowed me to choose a team that I feel like I could really fit in well with. The timing was great also because they're playing in the Western Conference. This is a team that's been through a lot in the first 2 years together. They've achieved a lot. And so this gives me an opportunity to experience something new that this team hasn't gone through before. And as a player, it's a unique experience to switch conferences, for at least a year. I don't know what the future holds after that, but to at least experience a new conference and play against teams that because of COVID, I haven't played against as often. And so I think that's a unique challenge that, again, stepping out of my comfort zone and growing as a player, that's really important to me. And I know that I only have one career for this. And, finally, I just hope that this is a place that I can be for a long period of time. And it's a place that I could see myself being settled in eventually, but ultimately it's up to me. And, they've given me all the resources that I need. They've helped me settle in so quickly already. But, now it's time for me to prove myself. And in a lot of ways, I feel like a rookie, and it's an exciting feeling. It's a special feeling, and I just can't wait to fight for this team and for this club. I'm really thankful for how the entire process went, and I'm really just happy to be here.
Thank you, Sean. Well said. We'll go to Drake Hills, then we'll go to Ben Wright. Go ahead, Drake.
Yeah, Sean, welcome to Nashville. I guess eventually when you guys get back from preseason, man. But wanted to maybe ask a little bit of a lighter question and just talk about, I know in 27 was obviously something that you wore with Red Bulls and Anuka's got that, but you doubled up and went with 54. So what's the story behind 27 and why not triple 27 or quadruple 27? I don't know.
Yeah, so it's funny when I joined Red Bull, I was given 27, and actually one of the players that was a huge inspiration for me, helped me feel so comfortable at the club, was Kosuke, and now he's the assistant coach here. And it's just funny how everything ties in together. But I inherited his number, a Japanese guy, great guy. And, it was really awesome to see that now he's taken the next step and he's become an assistant coach here. And then in terms of, my number, I'm not that crazy about numbers and what they mean, but I did have some thought behind it. And first of all, I wanted to be respectful to Anunga and, his jersey number. And ultimately, I wanted to kind of carve my own path. And so I was speaking about it with my family. And when I talked to them, my mom was born in 1956. My dad was born in 1952, and you take the average and it's 54 and it's double 27. So it's just perfect. And, I'm really excited. I come from a team where high numbers are very common. And so I think I'm sure from the outside, it is a little different, but for me, I'm just looking to carve my own path. And, I think that it was a good way to do so.
Go ahead, Ben.
Yeah, Sean, first off, just welcome to Nashville. I'm also just wondering kind of what your initial impressions are of the midfield group. Obviously, guys like Annabelle aren't there at the moment, but what have initial impressions been, and how's it been with Gary so far early in preseason?
Yeah, when I think about Nashville and watching them play so many times over the last 2 years and preparing for them this year, midfield is definitely a huge strength of the team. And I think that was attractive to me, again, to play with great players. And obviously you have Dax, who is just an extremely good player, and you know, one of the players that everyone around the league looks up to, not only his quality, but his demeanor, his mentality. And he's been so important in my development as a player. And when I look back on my time at Red Bull, you know, I wouldn't be sitting here talking with you guys today if it wasn't for Dax and seeing how he showed up every single day and, you know, understanding what it took to be a top player in this league. You know, that was a really important time for me. And so Dax knows this, but I'll always be grateful for him and I'll always look up to him. But I think the midfield is extremely strong. You could go down the line. Every guy is talented in their own ways, but over the course of these last 2 seasons, it's been really impressive to see them control games in different ways. And, you know, ultimately, I'm just looking to add my best to the group and complement the group in any way possible. And the sessions have been challenging, demanding, and I'd expect nothing less from Gary. You know, he on my visit, I had a great conversation with him, and he's a guy that knows what it takes to win in this league. And, you know, I love picking his brain about his experiences at Colorado and what helped him win there, and the important qualities that he sees not only in the team, but also in my position. And, you know, it's been great to have those kind of transparent conversations with him as well. So again, just looking to add my best to the group. I want the best for the team. I want the team to win. That's paramount. And, you know, I'm just really excited to be here.
Go ahead, Tom.
Thank you, Sean. Congrats on the move. Nice to speak with you again. Bit of a multi-part question. I just wanted to get your thoughts on you know, how difficult it was for you to leave your boyhood club, the New York Red Bulls, and in conjunction with that, how important was it to you that Nashville showed, you know, basically from the first minutes of free agency, how much they wanted you and valued you, as well as what impacted your relationship with Dax McCarty having this move?
Yeah. So your first question, yeah, leaving Red Bull. I mean, we ended on great terms, and that's pretty rare in this business. And at the end of the day, it is a business, and it's a sport that I love, but it's not always easy. And you know, we had conversations about a new contract dating back to July, and you know, it's never going to be easy. But again, it's for me, it's about stepping out of my comfort zone and trying something new. But it's a club that I love and respect, and they're going to be down here at IMG. And honestly, I can't wait to see the guys again. I can't wait to see the coaching staff, and we have a great relationship. And I wish them nothing but the best. I truly mean that. And you know, I'm really excited to see how they build on that last season and what we went through together. In terms of Nashville, yeah, it's honestly, it was just a really special time in my career. It was you know, the free agency again is new in this league. And I think all of us are adapting to that now, whether that's sporting directors, coaches, players. It's evolving. And I think that's only healthy for everyone. And, you know, being an MLSPA rep for, you know, the past 7 years, I truly appreciate the work that's gone into making free agency, you know, a meaningful mechanism within the league. And to be able to benefit from that is definitely a rewarding feeling. And, you know, it was challenging to think about my future the entire season last year. But ultimately, I wouldn't change a thing. I think, again, it was demanding, but it brought the best out of me. It's something that I'll remember for the rest of my career, you know, and be able to pass on those experiences to other guys that are going through a similar situation. You know, even when I look at Rusnak and, you know, other players that are going through free agency, I respect the mentality that they had to show up every single day and give their best for the team, because at the end of the day, you know, that's what it's all about, playing well during the games. And, you know, when you step on the field, all that matters is the 3 points. But going back to your question about Nashville, it really was a special time. When free agency opened on December 15th, and we were finally able to, along with my agents, finally able to talk to other teams about interest. You know, it was just a no-brainer to think about Nashville for the reasons that I outlined before. And I'll remember every aspect of it for the rest of my life, honestly. You know, as soon as we possibly could get everything organized, Mike Jacobs, John Ingram, the owner of Nashville SC, they flew up to Teterboro, they picked up my girlfriend and I, and we flew on a private plane to Nashville. And that's just something I never would have expected in my entire career. And, you know, I would have been happy flying to Nashville in economy, but this was definitely a special gesture from them. And, you know, it was an emotional experience. Like, it made me feel so appreciative that they would go to these lengths to show that they valued me. And we just had a great trip. You know, I was able to go to a Nashville Predators game, and I saw once again how Nashville supports their sports teams. We went out to dinner, we were wined and dined, and, you know, my girlfriend and I just had a great feeling about going to Nashville and playing for Nashville. And when I reflect on that time, you know, it all kind of makes sense for me, because Mike Jacobs has college recruiting experience, and going into free agency, I was already approaching it like my college recruiting days. And back then I went with what felt right, and I did the same thing this time. Nashville just felt like a great fit. And, you know, there was a lot of interest, but I kind of had my blinders on at that point, and Nashville had just done so much in such a short amount of time that it felt like the right move, and I was convinced of it. And so it took time to continue to explore free agency, to continue to understand the process, to make sure that I was making the right decision, or felt like I was making the right decision. And it was a big decision. But ultimately, they did everything right. I really appreciated their attention to detail, their thoughtfulness. They knew everything about me as a player, from statistics to running data to, you know, just watching me, which I didn't even know over the course of the season. And it's things that I wouldn't have even thought of that they were already thinking about. And so I really appreciated that. And, you know, in the end, it made a huge difference to me and gave me the right feeling.
Thank you, Sean. We'll wrap up with Drake, Tim, then Claudia. Go ahead, Drake.
Yeah, Sean, you basically just hit a home run with that answer. But I'm curious to know, like, you talked about the technical side of it. You've talked about obviously the career side of it, looking at your entire career and where you're at. And personally, that you were pretty appreciative of the presentation. Where are you at personally, and what you want to achieve, not just as a player, but just as a human being in this new chapter? Because just like, you know, whether it's yourself or someone that doesn't play in MLS, obviously there are chapters, and you've finished one and you're about to begin the other. So do you have specific goals in terms of what you're wanting to do? No longer living in New Jersey, New York, moving to Tennessee, and I'm sure that's a big difference for you.
Sure. For sure. And I think at the end of the day, soccer is most important to me. I know that a career is only so long, and I love this game so much. I love playing, and ultimately I just want the team to do as well as possible. I want the team to win. I want to bring something special to Nashville, a team that I recognized on the last game of the season when I was at New York and we were fighting for our playoff lives. I mean, the stadium was electric. The support was unbelievable. And again, going to a Predators game, to see the support there, I think it would be really special to win something. And, you know, Open Cup, MLS Cup has been elusive in my career up until this point. The Shields have been great, but of course I want to continue to win as much as possible. And I feel like Nashville is a great place to do that, and it's going to be challenging. There's no doubt about that. But that's a big reason why I came here. In terms of personal goals, you know, for sure, I want to immerse myself as much in Nashville culture. My girlfriend and I love the idea of getting to know the different neighborhoods of Nashville, understanding the history, understanding, you know, where it's come from and why it's one of the hottest places in the US right now. And so the same way that I approach traveling, you know, I would love to really feel at home in Nashville. And, you know, they have such a rich culture already that we're not going to run out of things to do. So getting the balance right of ultimately focusing on soccer, but at the same time enjoying what Nashville has to offer. I think that that's something really exciting for us. And again, a unique time in my life, a perfect time in my life to experience something new.
Go ahead, Claudia. Claudia, you good?
I'm good. Welcome, Sean.
Thank you.
You know, when we do when I do this about media covering the team and stuff like that, I usually try to read what these guys, Tim, Drake, Ben, write about any issue related with the team and soccer, because I do learn a lot from them, even though I'm a lot older than they are. And the reason I come back bring that about is because reading the articles that these guys wrote about you coming into Nashville, Drake, who's a good friend of ours here, he decided to call you the maestro, right? The maestro coming from New York. And I say, okay, good. I like them to be my maestros too, but in your position, coming as a maestro from New York, being younger, way younger, perhaps than the midfielders in our team, what is it going to be? Is it going to be part of you being a maestro or a pupil again?
Yeah. So, I think when I think about my playing style in New York, I would like to think that I was extremely aggressive against the ball. I would win the ball and I would get the ball to our attacking creative players. And I think that that's something that makes a lot of sense playing for Nashville as well. I love to hunt the ball. I love to run around. I love to do the dirty work. And but at the same time, I appreciate controlling the game with the ball as well. And again, spreading out the field, getting the ball to creative players like Ani and Akeloba and different players like that. And I think that that's something that's worked really well for Nashville, and something that I intend to do when I play for this team as well. So bringing my own qualities that I've developed from my first 7 seasons, and also adding to those and becoming a better player. And I couldn't think of a better way to do that than playing with already a talented midfield group. So in a lot of ways, I see a lot of improvements that I can make to my game. And I'm really excited to show those qualities now coming to a new system.
We'll wrap up today's session with Sean, with Tim Sullivan. Go ahead, Tim.
Kind of piggybacking off of what Claudio just asked, you were the only field player in the league to play every minute last year. First of all, have you had a chance to talk smack to Dave, since he did not play against you guys on decision day, and that he was the only other one alive at that point? And then secondly, how do you plan to adapt to potentially a smaller role, or do you intend to try and go every single minute again this year, and maybe take some of the load off of guys like Anibal and Dax?
Yeah, so I think, well, first of all, for Dave, unfortunately missing that last game of the season, but after playing so many minutes myself, it helps me appreciate what he was able to do, despite missing 90 minutes on the last day. Huge respect to him for being able to play as much as he did. And, I take a lot of pride in being able to achieve that. Not many players can say that for a number of different reasons, but especially during a COVID year. And it was challenging at times, but yeah, something I'm proud of. Now, like I've mentioned several times in this meeting, in this media session already, I'm looking to complement the midfield group. I'm looking to fight every single day to become a better player and ultimately help the team win. But I am also realistic that maybe I won't be able to play every single minute. I'll fight every day to do so, to earn my minutes, but I don't want anything handed to me. And I know, and I've seen the best players in the world move to new teams and struggle. And so for me, my mentality is to show up every single day, continue to learn, outwork people, and ultimately set myself up to help the team as much as possible and win games. So, that's my goal for the first season here. I can't wait to learn. I can't wait to experience something new. And, this is a challenge that I've been really looking forward to.